Module 2. In my previous module, since I could not complete with the explanation of that paragraph, I will be reading the last paragraph on page 58, and then I will continue with the explanation. We spent the evening together talking about Bermuda. I was thinking of the dollar, but of course, I did not refer to it. One simply cannot. I asked him what currency is used in Bermuda and whether the American dollar goes at par. I put a slight emphasis on the American dollar but found again that I could not bring myself to make any reference to it. It took me some time. I see Todd practically every day at my club to realize that he had completely forgotten the dollar. I asked him one day what his trip cost him, and he said that he had kept no accounts. A little later, I asked him if he felt settled down after his trip, and he said that he had practically forgotten about it. So I knew it was all over. So now he says that his friend had returned back after his 3-week stay at Bermuda, and the narrator, Stephen Lecoq, was the one who had gone to receive him at the railway station because he felt that since his friend was away for 3 weeks, it would be nice for his friend to see a very, very familiar face when he returns back after his trip. So when he met him at the railway station, the author or the narrator told him that, come on, let's return back by a taxi. But for that, his friend stopped him and told that no, he would prefer to continue walking, and so they continued walking and returned back to the place where he was staying. So he says that they had spent the evening together, and the whole of the evening Todd was telling him about Bermuda. And then but as Todd was continuously talking about how he had spent his vacation there, here simultaneously our narrator, he was only thinking about his dollar. And then he says that he could not directly ask his friend about returning the dollar, so he had made many attempts to remind his friend about the money that his friend owed him, and indirectly he kept on asking questions in such a manner that it was always related to money. But unfortunately he realized that his friend had totally forgotten about the money. He says that he even inquired that what is the type of currency that is used there, whether the American dollar goes on par. So he inquired that is the same American dollar that is used in that place there, and whether it has the same exchange value as that of the American dollar. And then he says that when he was speaking about this, he purposely put a little stress on saying American dollar, hoping that his friend would realize that he had borrowed $1 when he was leaving for this trip, that thinking that any reference of that so-called word would bring back some memory, and that he would remember that his friend had borrowed the money. Then he says that in fact his friend Todd and the narrator would be meeting every day at the club. And then he realized that after a few meetings of meeting daily at the club, the narrator realized that Todd had completely forgotten about the money. In fact, he says that one of the days he had also asked how much had his trip cost him, and the reply that he got from him was that he did not keep any track of how much money had come for this trip. So he did not keep any account, so he did not actually know how much money he had spent. And then after a few more days later, the narrator just inquired asking that, are you settled down now after you have come back from the trip? And then for that, the reply that Todd gave him, that in fact he had forgotten that he had gone away for a 3-week holiday to a place called Bermuda. And so when he heard this reply, the author or the narrator realized that now his money was just all forgotten about. Second paragraph on page 59. In all this I bear him no grudge. I have simply added him to the list of men who owe me $1 and who have forgotten it. There are quite a few of them now. I make no difference in my demeanor to them, but I only wish that I could forget. So now here the narrator goes on to says that he is not having any ill feelings towards his friend, that he has forgotten about repaying back the dollar what he had borrowed. So he says that he has just added him to the list of the peer. He has just added Todd's name also to the list of the people who owes him money. That it could be $1 or an amount more than that. And it says that I make no difference in my demeanor to them. I only wish that I could forget. He says that when he sees all these friends of his, especially Todd and all, he says that he cannot change in his behavior towards his friends just because he happened to owe him $1. He's saying for that $1 he cannot change his behavior towards his friend. So he says that he will just carry this memory with him till the day of his death, that there are certain people, there are a list of people in fact who owe him some money. And the narrator is earnestly wishing that he forgets about this, but since he belongs to that that category of people who cannot forget such things, so he knows that he will remember it till the last day of his life. Okay. Then he says that he was also I'll take this into my next paragraph. Now paragraph 3 on page 59. I meet Todd very frequently. Only 2 nights ago I met him out at dinner, and he was talking clearly without self-consciousness about Poland. He said that Poland could never pay her debts. You would think a thing like that would have reminded him, wouldn't you? But it didn't seem to. So here he says that his friendship with Todd continued, and he says that every day they would frequently meet at the club. And then he says that during their discussions that they had after dinner or during dinner, it so happened that on that particular day they were talking about, they were having some political discussion, and without self-consciousness, or here he means to say that without having any regard for the people around him, Todd was having a conversation with the narrator with regard to the country, the economic situation of Poland. Okay, a country in the European continent. And then it came to that they were discussing about the economic situations or the economic conditions that Poland was facing. And then he went on to say that Poland was now in such a situation where that means the country was not in a position to repay all the money that it had borrowed from the other countries. And then you would think a thing like that would have reminded him, wouldn't you? So here the narrator says that when Todd was speaking about repayment of the money Poland owed to the other countries, he would have at least thought of the money what he owed the narrator. But he was hoping that he would have thought about the money that he owed the narrator, but he was disappointed that uh, he did not even recollect about the money that he owed the narrator. Paragraph 4, page 59. But in the meantime, a rather painful thought, had begun to come into my mind at intervals. It is this: if Todd owes me $1 and has forgotten it, it is possible that there must be men to whom I owe $1 which I have forgotten. There may be a list of them. The more I think of it, the less I like it, because I am quite sure that if I had once forgotten $1, I should never pay it on this side of the grave. So now here, different thoughts started coming back into the narrator's mind, because he was of the opinion that if his friend had so much of money to spend on a vacation that he took to Bermuda, then how is it, or why is it that he cannot still return $1 that he owes his friend? And then he says that he felt as if he was cheated because his friend was not returning back the $1, and he was wondering whether such silly matters shouldn't cause any harm in their friendship, because the amount was just a very small negligible amount. It was just $1, and he says now this negligible amount shouldn't be made an issue when it came to his friendship. But in fact, the narrator was saying that it was ruining his peace of mind, because this thought constantly kept dwelling in his mind, or it kept coming back into his mind that his friend owes him $1, and he still hadn't repaid him. So he says that in spite of trying desperate ways of reminding his friend, it was just futile. His friend had actually totally forgotten about that returning of the $1, and so now the author had given up hopes of getting back that $1. Okay, and then in the meantime he goes on to say that the narrator starts introspecting himself. Now he started thinking, now if so many of my friends owed me $1, can it be the other way around? That could it be where I could also be be a defaulter in paying my friends back the money which I owed him? So he says that whether he is wondering whether he has forgotten to repay what he owes them. So now here he starts introspecting whether there were any situations where he borrowed money from his friends and that he had totally forgotten to return it. So he says that there could be a possibility, and the more he thought of it, the less I like it, because he was one such character. All these little things kept worrying him, and so he says that if he had forgotten to return back somebody's $1 which he owed somebody, he should think of returning it immediately, because he did not want to carry that thought of that he had to pay back somebody's money. He did not want to carry that thought of repaying somebody's money to his grave. So, children, I will stop my second module here and I will continue with the remaining in the third module.